All right, everyone, welcome back to Getting In, a college coach conversation. I got the name right this time. In the first segment, I kind of messed it up. We are now doing some listener Q&A. And of course, for listener Q&A, we've got to have Shannon Vasconcelos, our college finance expert here. Hey, Shannon, how's it going?
Hey, Ian, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm really excited by the questions that we've got because I think there's some
Yeah,
really terrific ones in here. And I want to
I
thank
agree.
all of you listeners that have sent in questions for us. You can do that at gettingin.voiceamerica@gmail.com, or you can go to our Facebook page. You can find us on LinkedIn and send us questions. There are a lot of different ways of reaching out and connecting with us. And we want to cover these. So, Shannon,
Definitely.
let's start with an admissions question because I want to talk. So, what do we got?
Of course you
What's at the
do.
top? Yep.
Yes. Coming in from Trisha. A friend recently mentioned to me that her fourth child was rejected from his quote unquote safety school because her older three children all applied and were accepted to that school, but did not attend. Do admissions officers consider past applications from siblings when offering admission to protect their yield?
Yes. No. No. I mean, yes. I understand the question, and no, I don't believe that
Okay,
that's
that
happening.
answer could not have been more confusing, Ian.
Well, I just want to draw people in here, Shannon. The reason I think that this question is so important right now, this show is going to air on 3/31. I think that's the same day actually that a lot of the Ivy League decisions come out, and it's about the point at which all colleges will have reached out and notified students. And oh boy, do you hear a lot of different reasons why kids didn't get in or did get in, or how this other kid who had stronger grades got denied while this other kid who had a weaker extracurricular
Yes.
profile got it, and everything. And so I
The
think
rumor
that
mill explodes when those
it goes
decisions start
crazy.
hitting. Yeah.
And I think that when we are trying to make sense of that from the outside, when we're not a part of the process, the deliberative process that happened on the inside of that admission office, we sometimes will assign value to different attributes that feel salient to us that were potentially irrelevant in the conversation. And so I can see why with this family, you would say, oh my gosh, all these older siblings got in. None of them said yes. The fourth kid applies, and that school says, you know what? We've had enough of this family. They keep saying no to us. No way. And I think that that's just there. It's something that stretches the imagination for me a little bit. And I think for a few reasons. One is that college has changed their selectivity over time, and most schools are getting more selective these days. So that can affect how different students might be read within the context of a pool. Second is that admission officers turn over pretty frequently. You'll find a lot of people who are in the office for 2 years, 3 years. And so there's not this sense of like, oh, I remember this family. Let's go ahead and double check. Now, they are tracking data, and they are going to look at indications of potential demonstrated interest in some cases, but they're not going to look at what the other siblings decided and hold that against another sibling. And I think admission officers always want to be very, very fair about each student being their own student. Each sibling has their own path. My brother and I look a lot alike, but we could not be more different in terms of what we wanted from college and what our career outcomes have been. And so to hold him to the measure of what I have, defined my educational career by would be totally unfair to him. So I think colleges have that same kind of view. Each student is unique. We are going to look at whatever it is that's important to us in that given applicant year. And on the outside, we as, spectators can't make a lot of assumptions about what's actually happening in the way that the sausage is made.
Yeah. And I get the impetus to do so,
Yeah.
coming from the outside as you see wonderful students not get into these schools, and there has to be some reason. So I understand the urge to find a tangible reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's natural. I think I would have the same instinct. I mean,
Yeah.
like ask me when my kids apply, and I'll be like, wait a second. But I think, if you banish that sense of emotion rationally, I think it's extremely unlikely that had an influence. All right, I'm going to ask you a question from Angel. This came through YouTube, which is really cool. So you can also send us questions on YouTube, folks. This question says, should I send an email to my financial aid office? Now there's more.
Sure.
Uh,
Yes. Why not?
yes, I received a need-based financial aid offer, but would like more to ease some stress, but my circumstances haven't changed. Okay, so this is the aid package isn't quite what is optimal for
Right.
Angel. I'm just worried about phrasing everything right. I was going to call, but I feel like I should email instead. I have that same instinct. Should I send an email to my financial aid office? So I think two questions here. One
Yeah,
is,
exactly.
should you ask for more money if you don't necessarily have a different circumstance? And then second is it better to call or email when you're making that ask?
Right. And so in terms of calling or emailing, I do agree that I think you should email. When you call a financial aid office, a couple of things. First of all, the person answering the phone, very likely to be a work study student who does not have the power to change anything. So it may be sort of a futile effort if you're trying to convince this lovely work study student on the phone that you need more money. They don't have any money to give you.
They need more money too,
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why they're working their work study job. They need the money. And I think often the sort of natural inclination is just sort of to kind of shut down the request. So I do think it is a better strategy to put your request in writing, email it into the financial aid office. If you happen to have the email address of the particular financial aid officer in charge of your case, you can email them directly. Otherwise, to the generic financial aid office email address is perfectly fine. And sort of lay out your case in writing, let it get to the right person. Sometimes these things actually have to go to a committee, so let that person sort of be able to act as your advocate in the committee. So I think email is an excellent strategy. Now, in terms of what if you don't really have any special circumstances to share in this email, should you still be asking for more money? I think yes, why not? The worst they will do is say no. Nothing bad is going to come of their request. So even if you really can't think of anything, hey, might as well ask. Depending on the circumstances of the school, if perhaps they're having low yield, to harken back to our last question, protecting the yield. If they're having low yield that year, they have extra money and they're having trouble enrolling students, maybe they do start to get a little bit more generous with the financial aid. And there's really no harm in asking, so you might as well. But the most successful financial aid appeals are ones that can bring up some new information to the financial aid officer, something that was not evident in your initial application, changed circumstances, something that was not reported. So I would urge you, before you send sort of a generic email, really think about it. Is there anything that was not evident on that FAFSA that I could bring up, be it high medical expenses, parents paying off their student loans still, a sibling in private high school.
I just bought a new boat and I don't have the cash flow. That's probably not a good one, right?
If that's all you got, hey, again, why not? But probably not. Maybe another one is you're supporting an elderly relative or family overseas. Anything you can think of, or your income certainly has decreased since the financial aid application you submitted. That's a great one to ask for special consideration for. So I would urge you to really think about it. Is there any new information you can share? Those are the appeals that are most successful. But if there's truly nothing you can put your finger on, hey, might as well ask anyway. You never know. Nothing bad will come of it.
Email works great.
Email better than calling, I think. Though I would say after you send the email, wait a couple weeks. If you have not heard anything back, I wouldn't hesitate to follow up at that point with a phone call. Make sure you're not sitting at the bottom of someone's email inbox, because there is a short window of time. Generally have to make decisions by May 1st. You want to make sure that you're being polite but persistent in following up.
Definitely.
Okay, the next question for you, Ian, comes in from Patty. She says, I love your podcast and was hoping you'd consider answering this question as part of a Q&A. You got it, Patty. My son is a roller coaster enthusiast, which is a term of art for exactly what it sounds like.
Okay.
He road trips to many theme parks throughout the year. His personal contribution to the coaster community is his Instagram page. He takes photos of roller coasters while at various theme parks and creates engagement on his page. He has organically grown his page to be large for the community, not for a Kardashian, which I love. That's the same thing we're aiming for with college coaches, social media presence, large for college consulting, not for a Kardashian. In addition, his photos have been reposted by several of the theme parks themselves to use on their own Instagram pages. How do you capture an extracurricular interest that is not a classic activity like a sports or club or a job on the Common app? And I will tell you, Ian, I felt the need to follow up with this mom when she messaged us on Facebook to tell me his Instagram handle, because I was intrigued. I don't know how it will play in the admissions process. I'll let you answer that. I was personally intrigued. I'm like, I need to see his page. I did tell mom I'd give him a shout out. So his Instagram handle at airtime_Ryan. If you want to check out really cool pictures of roller coasters, go check out airtime_Ryan.
So I was going to ask you, Shannon, as you came to the end of this question, when you hear this, what's your reaction? But you kind of answered it already. This sounds really cool, it's awesome. Right? It's like, what a cool thing for a kid to do. It sounds so organic. It sounds like that, that term that I hate that people always use in this process, passion, but it feels like an authentic passion. Like, I think that's pretty rare, but 100%. This really feels like that.
He is not doing this because he thinks it will impress an admissions officer. No. He's doing it because he loves it.
No. And I can totally see a circumstance where an admission officer, more often than not, is going to have your kind of reaction to this, or my kind of reaction. Like, whoa, what a cool thing. I never knew that this existed. What an awesome thing for a student to do. Provided he's got all the other, like, he's not going to get in only on the merits of the roller coaster enthusiasm, but I think it's a really wonderful component of the application. And so there are a couple of different ways of doing this. I think that on the one hand, if you have something like this for your students that doesn't feel like it falls into a typical kind of activity category, you can find a way to put that into the extracurricular activities list as a student, using your words, describing your interest so that a college admission officer can understand that. I have a student that I'm working with, for example, who just she's just casually said, I go to farmers markets every week. And I said, well, why do you do that? And she said, well, to pick out the produce. And I was like, all right, stop being sarcastic. Why do you need to go to the farmers market every week? And she said, it's because I cook all my own meals. I cook all my own lunches and dinners. My mom eats all of her meals at work. My dad likes frozen food, so he doesn't cook. And so I have to prepare all of my meals. Wow. And I was like, that awesome. Seems normal to you. That's an activity. Let's put that in your activities list. Right. And so she will have an opportunity to describe that in her college admission essay or in her activities list. For something like what's happening here with Patty's son, Ryan, this almost certainly needs to be his essay. Like, it just seems like there's not a world in which he can let this be one line item in an activities list, that it really has to be about what his central thing is. And I think that what I would say is, while it is cool that some of the rides have reposted his photos and he's gotten some notoriety and he's got some follows, that's not at all what I'm interested in terms of his engagement with this activity. I'm interested in the authentic development of that. It's kind of the process itself, that if you build it, they will come piece. I'm much more interested in the fact that he built it than the fact that they came. Because there are a lot of people with tons of follows who are doing very vapid things on social media. This is not one of those things, right?
Sure are.
And so I think a wonderful essay that helps us to learn more about who Ryan is and why this is such an interest for him and what he loves about this, that experience of being on the coaster, but also how he thinks about planning his adventures. And there could be just a really terrific essay coming from this. And this is one of those things where, as a counselor, I almost say, like, there's nothing else that you could write that's going to be better at introducing you to a college than this will be for you. So you have to, and I'm not going to let you write anything else.
Doctor's orders. Ian says so.
I said so. So Patty, you can tell your son, this is really cool. We got an N of 2 here, but we both think it's awesome. And you can tell him that this is probably his essay topic. All right, we're going to take a break. We've got more questions to come back, and then we'll keep on answering them, as many as we possibly can. But if we get these ones that get us excited, like Ryan's roller coaster enthusiasm, I don't know what we're going to do. Don't go away. We'll be right back.